Hi YouTube, and welcome to the build video for the Airfix 148 scale British Army quad bikes and trailer. Just a quick thing for you. First off, there's a couple of bits that I'm not actually going to use and attach to the kits. These are basically ammo boxes and other ammo boxes that come with the kit. I'm going to keep these separate for now and possibly use them elsewhere, so I'll put those to one side. So the kit starts off with building the quad bike, and the first two parts are to do with the suspension. Now, I have built the other quad bike to this kit. I used it as a dry run, and the thing I noticed, which I will point out when I come to it a bit later on, was that the instructions don't call out how items are fitted until a bit later on in the kit, when it may have been almost a little bit too late for some people to make a slight adjustment and correct. So once you've done the front suspension, the next part is the main engine, which comes in two parts, and it just goes together like this. Now, what I'm going to say to you is just be careful when you are taking this off the sprue and removing any mould lines or sprue gates that might be on it, simply because I damaged mine. I broke off one of the very delicate plastic rods that's part of it, and there are quite a few on here which you need to be aware of. So the bit I broke was basically this part got broken off from this side, but I will try and glue it back on as I progress. Now, the engine goes together by basically coming through the suspension unit and locating part of the chassis. Seems to locate into the rear. Now, this is where I had trouble because it doesn't really clearly define it in the instructions, but what you need to do is you need to ensure that this part here comes through the suspension and is glued into position there. The exhaust comes down the side, and then the front of this needs to locate into the side of the engine cowling. I don't know if you can see that, but just on the part of the framework mudguard assembly that you've just put on is curved to go around the front of the engine there, and there as well. So you will, when you glue it, need to press it in place to ensure it remains in situ, to make fitting the remainder of the parts easier. Now, once that's gone off, I'll just glue that there and then do the same this side. Once that's gone off, you're going to need to hold it in position whilst it sets. The seat and the front mudguards will go on a lot easier once you've done that. So the next part, as I was saying, is the seat and the first part of the front mudguards, which sit on top. So literally the top of the fuel tank, and I recommend putting this on first before putting the seat on. So pop that on, and then the seat goes on. Like so. Okay. Now from there, the front suspension assembly goes in, and this again you need to make sure you get round the right way. And it should go in position just there, like so. And it is keyed, so it should only go in one way. And then you will see where that missing part of the framework goes. So that's the bit on the side that I still have, and that's the side that's missing. I'm going to try and pop that in now, just make sure I get it orientated round the right way. So there and there for the glue. Okay. So that's that back in place. So as you can see, the quad bike's beginning to look very much like a quad bike now. And then the next part that goes on is the front of the rest of the front mudguards, and that goes on like thus, just there. And so the kit actually goes together quite nicely, and it is a very nice reproduction of a quad bike in 1/48 scale. The British Army have been using these for a long time, certainly nothing new for the Afghan and Iraq campaigns. as well as things like 6-wheeled supercats and things like that. The good thing about this particular piece of equipment is it is extremely air portable, and as such sees a lot of active service with air mobile brigades. So we're now getting the floor pan of this chassis in place. And just a little bit of wiggle room to bring it in line like that. And again, it goes on quite nicely. Apart from making sure that that first issue is addressed, the rest of the kit actually goes together quite nicely. So moving on, we now have the racking, and it fits in position. There's a couple of guide pin holes on the top, and it goes into position quite easily. And then the rear, and then just make sure you line it up and make sure it's square, and then we move on to the wheels. So the front wheels can be posed if you so choose at an angle, and the locating pins are actually slotted to make that slightly easier. So on this one, I am just going to pose it, just turn slightly, and the same on this one. And then the rear wheels are two-parters for some reason. They're the only wheels in this kit that are two-parters. And the thing that you need to just check is make sure that you line up the tread correctly before gluing in place. So the tread is just offset to each other on each side, and with the thin glue I'm just going to let the capillary action on the side do both of those, and again with this one. I'm just going to let those go off for a second. On the rear of the kit goes what looks like some form of storage tray, again with what appears to be another ECM antenna for defeating radio detonated IEDs. And then the handlebars. So make sure if you have turned the wheels that you turn the handlebars to match. Like that. And then all that remains for me to do is just pop on the rear wheels. and just make sure that they are straight. And that is the quad bike complete. It's very simple. There's only approximately 13 stages in building the bike itself. So the next part is the trailer, and again the trailer is very simple. And you have the trailer bed and then the two sides, and this goes on one way only. So it would be very hard to not put it on the right way round. So, and the same with the other side. Okay, so you then have the front bulkhead of the trailer, which goes on. And then the rear. Now the rear, because of the way the trailer is, if you so wish, you can have it modelled so that the flap is down. Okay. I'm not particularly fussed. I'm going to keep mine up. Like so. And then it is the tyres. Now it has 3 tyres on this trailer, one of them spare, 2 of them obviously on the axle, and again on this particular spare wheel pinion it's slotted so you don't get the wrong wheel in the wrong place. And then the side wheels. And again, just make sure that you have them correctly aligned, like so. And that is basically the trailer. Now the trailer has a couple of accessories that go on it. You have these sand channels which are basically modelled hinged, so you can model them in the carry position, folded position, like so, and like thus. These can then be hung